Hi, in this video I'm going to walk you through the process of integrating Xero with Laravel. So I've created this package called Laravel Xero. So what I'm going to go through is how to actually get it installed and get up and running. So from the repository for dc/Laravel Xero, you can you can install it just using Composer, and all the documentation is available on the site. So I'll just walk you through the process. So the very first thing to get started with is we need to create an application. So what I've done is created a brand new trial account on Xero. So there's nothing on here as yet. So there's a business account being created, and now I'm going to create a new application. So I'm going to call it Laravel Demo. I'm going to create as a web application, and then we need to fill in the company URL or application URL. Generally, I put like the same domain as I'm going to use for the redirects. And I've also got a new Laravel install running on my machine. And what we're going to do here is basically this is going to be the process for creating the applications. And I've set this up using valid, so it's got HTTPS because it works better with integrations if you use HTTPS as using HTTP. So then go to our application. So I'm going to put that in as the base URL or the application URL. And on the redirect, I'm going to go to Xero/connect. And that's going to, when we go to Xero/connect, it's going to take us to Xero. It's going to do the connection and then redirect back to our application. Okay, so then I'll create the application. So that's now been created and we've got our client ID, so we're ready to move to the next step. So the next step is to actually install this package into Laravel. So I've moved into Laravel, open up my terminal, and I'm just going to paste in the Composer require command. And this will actually install the package into Laravel itself. Next, I'll want to publish the config file that comes with the package. But what that's done now is created a config file with our application, and if I open this up, most of the options within in here are what you would customize from your env file, but it's useful to be able to see these at a glance. So we've got things like the client ID, the secret, the redirect, where you're going to hit when you land, and the access token. One thing that's really important is the scopes. So by default, we're using the following scopes: so the open ID, the email profile, offline access, and account setting, transactions, and contacts. You can obviously change these to whatever you want. You can also put these inside of the env file, so then you can customize these on a per application basis as well. I'm just going to stick with the default, so I'm going to leave that as it is. So next we need to publish the migration, which will enable us to create a table. So now I'm going to migrate to actually create the migrations table. Okay, so now we've got that set up. Next thing to do is we need to add our environment variables to our env file. So I'm going to put these through, and I'm just going to grab the URL again from what I'm using locally. Here's where we just specify the paths to get redirected to actually connect to Xero, and then the page we want to go to actually interact with Xero. So I'm just calling this Xero itself. So next we need the client ID and client secret. So copy the client ID, and then we need to click generate secret to generate a new secret token. So it says that through, so they're fine. You can also create a webhooks token as well. To do that, you would go into your application and you go to webhooks, and then you can say if you want contacts or invoices that you want to monitor, where you want it, the URL you want it to send to, and then click save, and you'll be able to get a token from that. That's kind of about the scope of what we're doing in this video, so I'm not going to go to that step in this stage. So that's our application set up. We've got our tokens and we've added our tokens to our systems. So the next step is to actually look at how to actually connect. So we've done the install set. Just for clarity, there's two ways of using the system. You can use the built-in middleware. So we've got this Xero authenticated middleware that you can put on your routes. And that just means to access anything that's within those routes, you must be authenticated. You can also access your tokens anytime from the model by just importing the actual token itself. So if we go on to the usage, it shows two examples of how to use this. So we can use a regular route, and within this route closure, we can then say, if you're not connected, redirect to Xero, or if you are connected, then, or just for demonstration purposes, let's just print out the tenant name that you've connected to. And if you're not connected, then it's going to redirect you to Xero Connect, and the Xero Connect is going to redirect you to the connection URL that's set in your env file. I prefer to use this approach where we're using the middleware. So we're going to copy this and put it into a route. I'm going to put this at the bottom of my file. And straight away, we need to import the actual namespace for this. So in Storm, I can just import it. And I actually want, so the actual full namespace is DC blog dev 0 facades 0. So I pull that through and it just puts it at the top of my file. And then I can just have this shortcut reference to them. So I'll just save that. So now if I go back to my application, and now if I go to Xero, it'll recognize that I'm not logged in, and it will try to connect me to Xero itself. It redirects me to Xero. So now you can see that it shows my demo application. So Laravel demo was the name of the application I created within Xero. It's connected to, it's showing me the application I can connect to, which is the demo business. So I'll allow the access, and at this point it'll redirect me back to my application. And now we can see it shows demo business because this is now kicking in, so we can see the tenant's name. So from this point, you can then say get and then pass through the endpoint that you want. So if I wanted to say all the contacts, save it like that, come back and refresh the page. And now we've got this JSON object. It's not very pretty in this case, but we just need to loop through it. But this basically shows you everything that you've got on your account. So if we go back to the examples here on the documentation. So with the Xero, it's quite a simple API to work with. You can say the actual protocol to begin with, so Xero, get, post, put, patch, or delete. And then you put in the relative path of what you want, and then you can pass through an array of options. So like the example I've just gone through is connecting with get contacts. Also, I've created, also for checks, we've got this is connected endpoint. So you can say Xero is connected, and that will return true or false. That just says if you're connected or not. So it's a way that you can manually check if you are connected. And if you want to disconnect at any time, you can just say Xero disconnect, and that will actually disconnect you and redirect you back. For convenience, for contacts and invoices, I've created a few endpoints to make these things a bit easier to work with. So in this case, we can say Xero connect, and then pass through how many pages we want it to start with, and if we want to put in an extra, like a where clause condition in place, then we can put that in place. So I'll come back to this page and just override this, and I'm just going to stick with the defaults. So I'm going to remove those out. So this should just get me the contacts in the same way. So here we're saying Xero contacts and then get the records. So I'll come back to this page, refresh the page. And in this case, we get an empty array because I don't actually have any contacts set up yet. Yeah, the documentation basically goes through all the different options that you've got. And if you also look at the view of the way this is set up, you can also look at the raw API, the actual API on Xero itself. So you can say, oh, that's where we need to go to. So this first part of the URL is what's called the base URL. So that's already set up within the package. So you don't need to put that part in, you just put whatever is after it in. So you can put in contacts, for instance. So it is quite useful to be up and running. But in terms of being able to get the integration working, this package, as you can see, it makes it fairly straightforward to do that process. Likewise, you can create contacts, update contacts, and same with invoices. So this package really concentrates on the contacts and the invoices, but because we're using the actual API endpoints within kind of this setup, it gives you that flexibility. They're not restricted to those two areas. You can go to any areas that's within Xero itself, and then you can just pass in the parameters as you need them.